Welcome to Thought Hustle. Today we have the pleasure of bringing on an incredible individual, John Cerasani. John, he built an insurance company right from his kitchen table, and then right after that, he sold it. After selling it, he started working with entrepreneurs, investing in others, giving advice and sharing his expertise from what he'd learned building and selling his own company. And right now, he runs Glencrest Global, which is a venture capital firm that is
Right.
involved with startups in the sports gambling realm and the entertainment tech industry. Now, I know that's quite the background. I stumbled over everything. Did I miss anything in there, John?
I don't know, man. It depends how far we want to go back, man. I mean, back when I was in elementary school, I started a lemonade stand. No, man, that's perfect. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, of course. Welcome to the show. Where are you based out of right now?
I'm in
LA, right?
Chicago right now. I'm half the time in Chicago, half the time in Los Angeles.
All right, very awesome, very awesome. Now, getting right into it and starting right out, was there a yes moment that led you to start Glencrest Capital
Yeah,
or
so
Global? I'm
Glen,
sorry.
that's okay. Glencrest Global is my venture capital firm, and so if we wanted to start there, right? So I had the yes moment for that was that I had retired from the insurance business, which we could
Yeah.
get into later, but I had, I was too young. I was, 42 years old and retired. And all right, I went to the Bahamas a bunch of times. I went to Las Vegas maybe a couple too many times. And I'm just looking at my life. And, vacationing's cool when you have like something to look forward to. Okay, looking forward to that vacation. When you start just doing it all the time, it's just like, it loses its appeal a little bit. So, I kind of had that aha moment that, man, I really enjoy working with entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I got this capital now. I could infuse it into other companies. And what I noticed was a lot of first time entrepreneurs were also looking for guidance and, advisory roles.
Yeah.
So learned that pretty fast and decided, what, I need to formalize kind of what I was already doing as an angel investor, put myself out there with Glencrest Global as an early stage venture capital firm, and really got into some higher profile deals relatively quickly. And it was awesome, man. It was awesome. So my aha moment, sorry, I kind of digressed there.
Oh, that's perfect.
My aha moment was that, hey, pina coladas on the beach aren't going to cut it in the long term here. I gotta get off my ass and do something, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, and that I kind of wanted to start with where you are, and then I want to bring it back a little bit. So, I believe it was in 2015. Was that when you started the financial company, or is that when you sold it?
Yeah. So I started an insurance company in 2005, and
And
then
would you go over why you started it? Because I love that story.
yeah. Well, that's really I think the biggest part of my story, and
Yeah.
my book that we're probably going to talk about later is really using that as a basis. But I worked at a corporate insurance giant, good astute employee in corporate America. On that fast track in my 20s, was probably going to be in management by the time I was in my mid 30s, and climbed that totem pole and had an assistant and an office and a big title and all this shit. And I just started to have kind of an epiphany, like chip by chip by chip on that like brick wall kind of breaking down,
Yeah.
and realizing, this is kind of like, I don't know, smoke and mirrors almost. It's like, why do I give a shit about being the regional vice president one day? Or why do I give a shit about being honored at these weekly sales
Yeah.
meetings we have for all the sales I had last week? Like, I was being trained to put value in those things. When at the end of the day, the value proposition for our clients, which is the reason we were there, was 98% coming from me. These were all distractions, the happy hours with vendors, the golf outings with, the qualifying for your trips and all this. Who cares? That didn't have anything to do with what we were actually there for, to serve our clients. And as I realized that, I just decided, you know what, man, I could do this shit better on my own. And then from a personal standpoint, I just looked at what I was making financially versus what I could make on my own. And it became really a no-brainer. But okay, you can't do it on your own though, man. You go out on your own. You need that big name. You need that big insurance company name on your business card.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's find out, and I'll let you know how it works out. And that's what I did, and it blew up relatively quickly. I found a way to compete as a smaller entity in a really crowded, well-established space, focusing on a specific niche, and it just caught on like wildfire, man. And it was awesome, and that's why I say I gave myself a two. Instead of arguing for that cost of living increase in your annual meeting with your manager, I tell people I gave myself a 2,000% raise instead, and I put myself on top of the org chart instead of making money for someone else.
Now, I read, and correct me if this is wrong, but you wanted a big raise, and because you didn't get that, that really set you to really reconsidering whether or not you wanted to work for a company and in your 30s, 40s, 50s.
You know what? Good for you that you did some research there. Yeah, that's exactly right. I'll tell you what. So I was making I think I was making like I was making like 140, but it was like 120 plus some bonuses. And
Yeah.
I needed to I did the math, and my bare minimum was to be, okay, if you pay me 180 grand, I won't leave. That was my minimum. And I went and asked for that raise, and it wasn't happening. And it wasn't just because it wasn't happening for me personally. It was the idea of why it wasn't happening. Well, you can't get paid that because these guys that have been here 15 years are making like 175, and this guy's in management and he's making 170. You can't. Well, how is that freaking motivating? I brought in 800 grand of revenue to the company last year, and so I was 26 years old. It was only going to go up from there. So I was seeing the writing on the wall that this wasn't the long-term solution. So I pulled the plug relatively early, because the way it works in that business is you build up a block of business, you build up a book of business, and you get paid on the retention of that business. So the longer I stayed there, the more screwed I would be,
More
because
money the company makes, and you're just, yeah.
well, and the harder it is to leave too. I'm just making
Yeah.
them money that they're probably going to keep on their books for after I leave. Well, I want that on my book. So and you don't want to play with like this, pissing match when you leave with non-compete agreements and that kind of stuff. So I just kind of realized, I go, listen, I got to pull this plug, and just, it's not going to get any easier if I stay longer. And I just I pulled the trigger and did it, man.
No, that's not normal. I mean, you're getting paid 120, 140, somewhere in there. That's a high salary. I mean, most
Yeah,
people aren't making that. So you
brother.
must have always had the entrepreneurial bug in order for you to think I can go and make more than this. Because most people, that's the golden handcuffs right there. Six figures
Yeah,
plus.
yeah. Well, so I was fortunate to end up in insurance, in group insurance, where they're dealing with insurance of corporations. Okay. So it wasn't uncommon to be around other people that were making 200, 300 grand, even more. You'd hear stories about the Prudential life insurance rep made 800 grand last year. Like these stories would fly around the industry. Um, what was nice about what I was doing, though, was it was the brokerage side. So it was very, you could just look and see the revenue you're bringing into the company. You could look and see what you're getting paid, and you can see what that delta is. So I just started doing the math. I'm like, okay, how many of these clients am I getting because I work at that company? Well, some of them. I don't think all of them, though. Okay, so what is that delta between the revenue I'm bringing in versus what they're paying me? Okay, I could hire an assistant with that. I could get my own office space with that. I don't need to do any of that shit. I'll be my own assistant and work from my kitchen table. I'll go pay $49 a quarter to the UPS store to get a professional looking mailbox at the UPS store. Like, that's really what I did, and started calling high profile clients from my kitchen table and introducing myself. And slowly but surely, they all started coming over. Ended up having the most private college clients in the country, was the leader in that, with over 100 of them. By the end, before I sold my company, they were calling me. I wasn't even calling them. It was really a plan that was well executed, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's unbelievable. Now, there was something you said earlier that I wanted to touch on a little bit. You talked about you were programmed to
Oh, yeah.
want those things, to want to become the VP. You were programmed to
Yeah.
want to build a book for your business, to be
Yeah.
able to say, oh, look what I did. But you were
Right.
not programmed to, I guess, join the 2000% club, the 2000% raise. So how did you unprogram that? Because what I'm hearing from you is most people in your position, they're never going to leave if they're making six figures plus. But you said I can make way more money than that. So where did that unprogramming begin? Because that's like culture. That's what people love, right?
Yeah. So, and I talk a lot about this in my book, by the way, and the book's not even out yet. So I know you didn't even read it with that. So you're not setting me up with that question, but it seems like it's a setup for my book, to be honest with you. So what I talk about is that unprogramming. I don't use the word programming in the book. I use brainwash. Okay. And part of it is recognizing that the brainwash even exists. All right. So there's two types of brainwashes. There's the micro brainwash and what I call the macro brainwash. The macro brainwash is we're all facing it every day, and that's just the societal conditioning that entrepreneurship is risky. Working for a company and getting a 401k and all that stuff is the safe route, and climbing that corporate ladder is what anyone with a bachelor's degree. Oh, you went to a good institution for college. You need to be doing this. You don't be some risky like business owner. This little guy over here. I have some friends that work at big ass law firms, and they make fun of these lawyers that they call them ambulance chasers, or they'll see their commercials on TV, and there's other friends of mine will make fun of them and like, that dude made $8 million last year, dude. So, like, what are you making fun of? I'm sorry. You work 90 hours a week and what? Because you got a bigger name on your business card. Stuff like that is all part of the macro brainwash. It's societal conditioning. Okay. The micro brainwash is what's happening specific to you at the company you work for. And all employers do this to a degree. And that is simply realizing it's there to undo it. You got to see what I'm saying and believe me that it exists. If you don't believe me, then it doesn't matter. Like you're never going to see it. You're going to just continue being brainwashed. So once you identify that you are brainwashed, you got to realize that your colleagues don't see it like you. You can't lean on them for advice. You can't compare notes with them. They don't see it this way.
Yeah.
You know, and it's things as simple as this, man. It's as simple as, you know, us thriving to get that assistant vice president title at the job. Okay, well, how many vice presidents are at the company? You know, there's like 200 people with that title, and there's like 400 people with assistant vice president. Well, why would I want that title? Well, if you can't get the assistant vice president title, you'll never be vice president. Who gives a fuck? Like these are all part of the micro brainwash. Who cares? You know what I mean? So, you know, or another thing is like you'll have some walk on water guy in the office or someone at the organization everyone kind of looks up to. Dude, outside of these walls, that regional director of distribution that everyone's so happy to, oh, he's coming into the office. He's in town from Minnesota. Dude, who cares? Do you think outside of your organization anyone gives a shit about him?
It's just
doesn't
another
matter.
Guy. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you know, people that are maybe not even impressive people are built up to be super impressive people within the walls of that organization. And once you start seeing the bigger picture, you notice that a lot better. Now, you need to have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit in you to do anything with this information. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like this information does you no good if you're not going to do anything with it. Yeah. And what I'm encouraging people to do is do something with it, like go out on your own and compete with your former employer at the time.
Yeah, no, I have to push back a little bit because there are those people out there who say that the people who push for entrepreneurship, they're the ones who are brainwashing you to want to do something else. So like, you know, the glitz and glam of the entrepreneur life, driving Lamborghini, wearing a Rolls Royce, wearing a Rolex, you know, that sort of thing. Why? Yeah, wearing a Rolls Royce. Why is it beneficial to be an entrepreneur as opposed to, you know, a vice president at some law firm or finance company, or I don't know?
Well, one of the things I'd like to discuss is to have I call it a pedigree analysis. Analyze yourself. Okay. Not everybody is going to be better off being an entrepreneur. Okay. But the idea that A lot of people are going to be though. Okay. So I'll just use myself as an example. If I would have kept that job making 140 a year, you would not be interviewing me on your podcast right now 20 years
Nope.
later. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'd be making 190 now, 20
Yeah.
years freaking later. Instead, I don't need to work again the rest of my life, and neither do my grandkids if I wanted it that way. They're going to. But like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there is a different upside that could come from this. And if I just believed in all of the things around corporate America with people telling me you're crazy, no clients are going to come with you guys, like it's all bullshit. You know what I mean? Now, that said, to your point, a lot of people wouldn't be able to cut it. It's not like I just came up with this idea and I could have given it to Joe Schmo and he'd be able to execute it. I mean, I was good at my job. I was one of the top salespeople. I was able to transition out, you know, and do it effectively. A lot of people are better off working for someone else. You know what I mean? Like if you're a sales rep at a company and you're institutionalizing your business from the moment you sell it, meaning that you're in business to business sales and all you're out there doing is talking about how great your company is, and you're bringing in Todd from Dallas as the regional VP, and he's helping you with the closing presentation, and you're giving out numbers of all these resources at your headquarters, and so does this and she does that. That's fine, man. Like you're a good corporate employee. You know what I mean? You probably shouldn't go on your own. You know what I mean? So I do think that there's something there, without a doubt. You know, and I used that example earlier with the law firms. Like, I got a friend that's, you know, a partner at a huge law firm right now, man, and he's making the big bucks, and his whole life he's been programmed academically to serve that role with all of his roles up until this point. If he went out on his own, he doesn't have the skill sets. Not that he wouldn't be smart enough to it, but he's never had to do it. He wouldn't be able to be versatile with his own smaller law firm, having to deal with everything. He's a specialist at something very important over here. The skill set wouldn't necessarily translate. So you got a guy, and that's an extreme example because the partner at a big law firm, right? But you know,
it's the same even at, you know, whether you go big or you go small though. And I think what you're saying, it's really important. It's being an entrepreneur is not for everyone. Honestly, it's more difficult than working a 9 to 5, moving up the ladder, doing that sort of thing. For most people, it's going to be a grind, but the rewards and the benefits of it are usually more time and more freedom for yourself. And in the long run, it's more beneficial. So if you're willing to put in those 10, 20 years up front, later on, it's going to pay you back, as opposed to, like you said, you go to manager in your 30s and your 40s, maybe you're going to assistant vice president, and you know, your 50s, you're going to the VP, that sort of thing. You're going to reach that point sooner as an entrepreneur, but you're going to have to hustle a lot more when you're younger.
Well, and you also control your own destiny too. People don't really realize that, you know, in corporate America, it's what have you done for me lately? Okay. Your boss or your boss's boss might shift, and you've been cuddling up, making best friends with this person the last 8 years, and they don't work there anymore. They got a job somewhere else, or they got fired or whatever. New guy comes in. What have you done for me lately? I don't give a shit that you were kissing my predecessor's ass for 8 years. Who cares? You know what I mean? That actually might work against you. You know what I mean? So, you know, you hear stories all the time about management or upper management changing, and, you know, people that are 50 years old that have been there for 25 years and now all of a sudden miserable when they otherwise loved their job up until that point. And when you're an entrepreneur, there's a different set of headaches, but that's not one of them.
Yeah, and I love discussing this because there's good and bad that comes with being an entrepreneur, and you can't just give the glitz and glam. You have to say, yeah, there's going to be a lot of hard work on the back end. Right. But did you mention what the title of your book was going to be?
It's the same as my podcast. It's called 2000% Raise, and it's 2000percentraise.com for all the information.
And when's that going to come out?
Yeah. Well, we're targeting November 19th, but my editor, I don't know if he's listening right now, we're waiting on this final draft to approve, and I don't have it in my inbox yet, but November 19th is the target.
November 19th. All right. Awesome. Yeah, that's really, really exciting. Okay. So yeah, kind of moving to where you are now today. I mean, to start out, you retired for a few months and you found out that wasn't for you. Would you talk a little bit more about that? Because that's a lot of people's dreams. I mean, they want to build a business, sell it, and then go retire in the islands and do whatever they want. Beautiful women,
Yeah.
beautiful cars, beautiful watches. Why wasn't that for
Well,
you?
yeah. So before I exited my company, okay, before I sold my company, I was already making a lot of money. So it wasn't like one of those deals where you build it up and you're starving eating ramen noodles and all of a sudden you're a multimillionaire because you sold
Yeah.
your company. Okay. Mine was different. I owned 100% of the company. I was making a ton of money. Every year was going up significantly. Then private equity bought the company for a multiple of what I was making. So they just threw like gasoline on that fire. So I had already been used to making a lot of money. It wasn't like this newfound thing. You know what I mean? So 9.5 years after I started it, I sold the company to private equity. Part of the deal was that I had to work at that company for 5 years because they wanted to make sure, hey, we're not going to give you all this money and have all these clients leave. You got to stick around and help us institutionalize this business and blah, blah, blah. It was fine. But what happened was they were smart. They put in incentives and kickers to make sure that I'm not just sitting there freaking taking a stroll in the park for those 5 years. There was incentives that were significant to make me even make more money on the sale, like after the fact. So I sold it in 2015. Hey, if this happens in the next 2 years, you're eligible for this. In addition to the sale in 2017 and so on. It's kind of how it worked. So what ends up happening is that motivation's in place. You end up working your damn ass. So I sold the company. Now I'm working harder than I did the day before because I want to sell it for even more damn money.
So it wasn't that glorious sell-off where you ride off into the sunset. You're grinding afterwards.
Bro, that's exactly the case. So I'm sitting here working my ass. I go, wait a minute. I literally transferred millions of dollars into my damn bank account. I see it in my damn Chase checking account. Yet there's no like, hey, let's go to Hawaii for a week. There's nothing. I was working the next day harder. So once that was finally up, okay, man. Once that was now, mind you, trust me, the whole time, even when I had the company, I was still doing kind of like nice, like vacation types of things, and I'd become used to it like on a regular basis. But nothing changed in those 5 years. So finally, those 5 years are up. All right, got all this done. My employment contract's over. Now's the time, dude. Like, yeah, man, that lasted 5 months, and I'm like, all right, I gotta do something else. This is not cool. So I had been investing in companies anyway as an angel investor. Just decided, hey, I got all this capital now. That's fun. I do find it fun. And did that, and that's really just opened the door to so many different things. And I'm doing this podcast now and everything else. So it's kind of like work, but not really, man.
Yeah, you're kind of doing it on your own terms. And I mean, what you're investing in now with Glencrest Global, what you're investing in now are things that you find interesting, right? It's not just anything, it's things that you enjoy, things that you think have a future, but you also think are fun to invest in, fun to learn about, right?
Yeah. So insurance was lucrative for me, but it was never like exciting dinner conversation. You know what I mean? Like no one wants to sit around dinner talking about like Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act. It's like boring shit. All right. So yeah, my friends and family and just, associates would see me as being successful. They could see, but like no one really knew what the hell I did. Like, oh, you're an employee benefit corporate broker. What the fuck does that mean? No one knows what the hell that is, nor cares. Or then when the people that do know just know it's not that exciting to talk about. So I decided with this next chapter, I'm going to invest in shit that I actually think is cool. Stuff that's fun. And I'm going to deal with founders that I find interesting and fun. So I'm in some really cool deals, man. Some really cool deals. I'm part of the investment group that bought the Newport Beach Marriott, which is the Via Hotel in Orange County. It's awesome on Pacific Coast Highway. Involved in 2 different deals with Aaron Rodgers, the football player, and that's pretty freaking exciting. Became really good friends with a lot of people throughout California, and then I'm involved in a number of them here in Chicago too, and it's just really cool, man. Like, okay, here's another one too. I don't want to just name drop celebrities. One of the things I'm involved in is out of Philadelphia. These guys developed AI, machine learning that combs social media, and it's going to become part of the background check process for new hires in the future. Meaning right now, You interview for a job, and that HR person has you fill out this authorization for a criminal background check. Depending on the industry, maybe a credit report. There's going to be a third one now, and that's going to be the social media scrubbing. And there's an AI and machine learning component. The company is called Life Brand. And I'm going to tell you what, man, I'm early stage on this thing, but this is going to be $1 billion company. And that's the kind of shit, man. I could talk to you about Life Brand by itself for the rest of the podcast if you want to do. Like, it's so cool to be involved in this stuff. You know what I mean? So
That's kind of scary. And we're going to talk about that a little bit for sure, John.
Sure.
I mean, that's scary. So essentially, you're not just getting a background check. I mean, their goal is to do a social media check. I mean, we're talking TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, that sort of thing.
Yes, it's already happening. But if companies want it to happen, so here's the thing: in the human resources landscape right now, there's a lot of because human resources people want to be compliant. They're legal compliance, and no one wants to get sued, especially the big, Fortune 500.
All the exciting stuff.
Yeah, just like exactly. Awesome. Well, the problem is there's not it's a very gray right now on decisions that they can make regarding social media. So Daniel, say you came and interviewed for my 2,000 employee manufacturing company, and I'm the human resources person, and we have a good interview, and I end up not hiring you. And you could turn around and say, well, wait a minute. He probably looked at my Instagram, or he knew someone that went into my Facebook and they saw this picture of me saluting Joe Biden or something. Yeah. And he's doing it for political reasons, whatever. Okay. This takes all that guessing out of it and puts it's technology that you sign off on, that the employer signs off on, scans your entire social media history, tells you how many posts have been flagged, shows you, Daniel, which posts of yours were flagged, but doesn't show me as the employer which posts they were. They just show me the number that it was, okay, and what they were flagged for. So illicit language, alcohol or drug verbiage, whatever, naked bodies, whatever the case may be. Beer bonging on a bar in 2009, you know what I mean? It's literally that. But the HR just gets the aggregate report. You get the actual flagging of which posts they were, and then it also allows you to either take them down or edit them. Okay. And here's the thing, though: there's no human doing this. It's the technology. So you go in there, the technology, it's all machine learning. It's learning what's good and what's bad, and it just gets better and better as it goes. So we do think that a lot of people, like I said, in the human resources world will tell you that this is coming. We got a 3.5-year head start on everyone because we're already building our machine learning with this and got a ton of people doing it. Additionally, there's other applications for it. We've had some private schools that consider themselves more prestigious in nature have their students all do this. Hey, the social media cleanup for you guys. So you don't have to have the adults get your passwords or go look at your account and that only your friends could see. Have the social media cleanup. Another thing is we think there's going to be an application one day in the future with law enforcement. You hear about these shootings. There was just a huge one in Highland Park, Illinois last summer on 4th of July, not too far from where I live. And guess what? If you looked at the social media posts, all the signs were there. And you hear this time and time again when there's these mass shootings. So could this type of technology be integrated with law enforcement to come up with ways to possibly identify things? There's so many applications to this technology, but our goal, I think, would be build this company up as much as we can to our ability. And then, maybe an Amazon or Meta or someone like that, turns it into a $20 billion company. But we're all going to be exiting hopefully around that 1 billion part. Actually, hopefully around 5 billion. But anyway,
that's absolutely amazing. So, how did you come to find this company? Or do they come to you? Where are you finding these investment opportunities?
Well, I'll tell you right now, once you put your name out there as a venture capitalist, people tend to find you. LinkedIn, especially, people scam that. This particular company, though, I made friends with the founders in Las Vegas. We were both being featured on this entrepreneurial venture capital TV show that was out there. It's called Office Hours. It's on Bloomberg. and Apple TV, and we we met at that, and then just kind of kept comparing notes, and they had a big funding round. I don't know if you guys talk about funding in your show ever, but they were doing a big funding round, and there was a little bit of room left, and I came in and finished the round and became an advisor of the company. So it's exciting stuff, man.
Yeah, no, we don't talk about funding too much. So would you talk a little bit about what that looks like? I mean, once you start investing, funding one of these companies, how do you become an advisor for that
Mhm.
company? Is that automatic if you put any money towards it? Do you have to put a certain amount?
Yeah.
Give us the rundown.
Well, no, early investors just by nature are usually just considered, friends of the company. So anybody that's an early investor, you would be, somebody that's like looking out for the best interest of the company and trying to be somewhat active. But to be an advisor and be actually on their advisory board, that's not just anybody that gives money. There would have to be a reason for that. For me, because I have so much experience in employee benefits working on the human resources side, and I also am associated with a number of high profile people, it made sense for me to come on in an advisory position on this, in addition to being an early investor. And you know a lot of it's also just you want to do it too. Is there something that you could offer, and you want to do it? And every advisory role is a little bit different. Typically there'll be some small piece of equity that's given to anybody that's on their advisory board, in addition to the equity that they purchased with their capital. I'm not saying there is or isn't with this particular company. It's private, but
Yeah.
usually that's how it works.
All right. Yeah, thank you for going into that. I
Yeah.
mean, you've done amazing things. You've lived an amazing life, and you've got a lot of amazing things coming up. What are like two or three traits for someone that you would say that people need to start working on if they want to follow a similar path as you? Not maybe it's not in the financial industry, the insurance industry. Maybe it's not angel investing, but they want to build a business. They want to be entrepreneurial. They want to get started. And I know they
Yeah.
can go to your book, but that's not out yet. But what are
Yeah.
two or three traits that you say if you start working on these, if you start honing these, then you're going to be gearing yourself up for success to build a business, to be an entrepreneur, whatever it is? Is there anything across the board that you need to be working on?
Well, first of all, I tell people to set your own benchmark. Okay, come up with your own standard. What happens is you go around people other than yourself, and maybe it's the current job you have, and over time you start adapting to that culture. If that culture is not one that's making you raise the bar, don't adapt to it. Okay,
Yeah.
who gives a shit what everyone else in your office is doing? One of the things I really talk about is you shouldn't even start your company until you know the trade. And the best way to know the trade is by working for someone else. Okay.
Mhm.
Now learn the trade. Think of your time there learning that trade as paid training. Don't tell them that, but you're there for paid training for the company you're going to start one day. All right. During that time, you need to outperform the other people in that office or at that company. And you're not going to do that by leaving early at 3 p.m. on a Friday just because everyone else did. You know what I mean? So I would say keep that in mind. Another thing is organization. Just organize your day. Every day when I wake up, I did it 20 years ago. I do it now. Now I don't have shit to do every day. I mean, I still do it. I look at my emails, look at my Outlook calendar or my Gmail calendar actually now, write down every damn thing. Okay. And then I'll group them. All right. So between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m., everything I put a one next to, I want to get done during that time slot. Okay. I'm going to do this. Now some things get deprioritized to move into the next day, but I'm always organized a little bit on what I want my day to look like every damn time. Another thing is, read books, man. There's a big one that I refer to all the time called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And you'd be shocked how important human nature is, whether it's in your professional life in terms of promotions and business, whether it's interaction with a client to get that client. Forget how good you are. Forget how technical you are. Forget how good your product is. That personal connection freaking matters, man. I'm gonna tell you something. I played football at University of Notre Dame. All right. And my sophomore year, Lou Holtz was our head coach. Okay. And I was in the doghouse for something. And I was at that point, I was the backup tight end, and I was kind of playing in these games, and I kind of wasn't. My time was split. Well, one game I was not supposed to be playing in. During practice that week, I worked my ass off, and he found a way to put me in on special teams on the damn kickoff return team. Why? Because he saw me hustling. He saw me saying yes sir, no sir. He saw me not pout when I got benched at tight end. He saw me keep working. All right. I'm going to find a way to put this guy in the game. I probably wasn't the best guy for that job. Somebody else probably should have been on that kickoff return spot that
You
I was
saw
in.
that. Yeah.
But he's a human being. This is Notre Dame football. We're playing against you. That game was against USC on national TV. Yeah. And human nature. So if it's close now, if that guy was way better than me, he wouldn't have done it. But it was just a little bit better. Hey, let's get John on the field somehow. You know what I mean? And I think that applies really to everything. And as I got older, man, I didn't really realize that, gosh, I mean, even like when I was 23 years old at my first job, I didn't understand why we couldn't like yell at our underwriters for not hurrying up and giving us proposals back to the sales team. I like, okay, wait a minute. You get them more with, what do they say? You get a bee better with honey than vinegar or whatever the hell the saying is. Yeah. So those kinds of traits, treating people with respect, but also reading a book like How to Win Friends and Influence People to really understand it, I think is extremely important.
Yeah, I think that's really underrated. I mean, psychology and the understanding of other people, because that's really what business comes down to. And just talking to you here, I can see why you did really well.
Thank you.
You're personable, you're likable. And something that you said before, though, is you were saying that the goal should be to help these people. I mean, when you weren't approaching this from a point of how much money can I make, you're saying, how can we best benefit these people? And when you start to link those things together, you start to understand people, you're actually looking for their best interests. That's when everything falls into line for you. And I think a lot of people miss that, and they're just focused on like the next sale instead of the long-term relationship. But the long-term relationship is far more beneficial and far more profitable than that one-time sale or interaction you might have.
Yeah, it'll catch up with you for sure. If you're in it, even with personal relationships too, like, like right now. Okay. So people would think I'm well off or good financially, right? If I get newer friends that become in my circle and they're asking for like some favor or some introduction or me to invest in something like early on in that relationship, it's like, dude, what? I thought we were friends. I thought you want to hang out
using you.
Game with me. Yeah, you know what I mean? But it's true with that, like for anyone, man. Like you got a neighbor that's a realtor, and you thought you guys were kicking it and having a couple beers together, and he's asking if he could list your house next month. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, I used my brother. Well, you should use me. I said, okay, I thought we were friends. You know what I mean? So like when people come across aggressive like that, when they're out for themselves early in the relationship, it's fine if you guys have been friends for 10 years and this is an hey man, don't forget about me when you do this. But like newer relationships, people see through that shit. And I compare it to being aggressive in the sales process. You push something early on in the sales process or get too pushy, people see through that. You got to look at things, holistically from a long-term standpoint, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, and I'm glad we covered that. I'm going to start to wrap up here. I got 4 final questions that I ask every guest. First of all, what's one thing that you would challenge the listeners to do to make a positive impact in their lives? And I know you just hit on like 5 things. Yeah.
Okay. Challenge listeners to do to make a positive impact in their lives. All right. Well, here's something I do. I started doing this in 2022. It was a New Year's resolution. I've stuck with it. At least once, or actually twice a month, I'll reach out to 2 family members, usually distant family members, that I don't see regularly, and also 2 old friends that I haven't talked to in quite some time for whatever reason. Set up a lunch, set up getting together for coffee. If they're out of state, maybe just a phone call. Starts off with a text. Hey, how are you? Just checking on you. Been a while, and just leave it at that. And I'll tell you what, man, there's nothing to gain from that whatsoever on my end, except exactly what it is. And they're gaining the exact same thing that I'm gaining. So I don't know. I always walk away from that feeling pretty good about it. One of the things that we get caught in sometimes is getting trapped into this whole thing with, well, whatever. I mean, I never hear from him, or they didn't invite me to this. Well, what did you invite them to, brother? Did you invite them to anything? Well, they didn't invite me to their niece's baptism. Okay, well, you didn't invite them to your 40th birthday. Whatever. You know what I
I
mean?
know.
Hey,
Yeah.
make the first move, bro. So anyway.
No, I love that. I love that. What is your top book recommendation?
Well, I said it earlier, but I'll say a different one now, just because I screwed myself too. I should have known you were going to ask me that too. I think I did know, and as soon as it came out of my mouth with the Dale
That's all
Carnegie
right.
book, yeah. I will say this will throw your people off. Okay, anyone that's not good in sales, or I shouldn't say that, not experienced in sales, and you want a good sales 101 book. All right, it's called The Rainmaker by Jeffrey Fox. The Rainmaker by Jeffrey Fox. It's only about 10,000 words, super short chapters. If you're not in sales or not experienced in sales, that book is a must read.
Thank you for that. And I'll leave links to both the books recommended today, 7 Habits and The Rainmaker. Where can people learn more about you? Where can they follow up?
At John Cerasani on Instagram and TikTok, and then 2000%raise.com, and then 2000% raise is the podcast on Spotify and Apple and YouTube.
Yeah, and everyone, make sure you check that out. I was listening to an episode today, and that's pretty new.
Yep.
So it'd be really great for John if you could just check it out, leave a review.
Sure.
But that's going to be a powerhouse of a podcast. So I actually subscribe to it. But
Awesome. Thanks,
finally,
man.
yeah, of course. Finally, what is one fun fact about you?
Fun fact about me. Let me see. I could walk into a casino and pretty much on any table of any game tell you what the house advantage is on any single bet in a casino. That's my fun fact.
That's something else. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today, John. It's been a pleasure.
You got it, man. Thanks.